Alrighty, welcome back to week 3 of the BBBN podcast. Um, Thank you so much for listening. Week 3 was absolutely terrible for me in my predictions. I don't know if you saw my Instagram post about the predictions. It didn't end well. I only got 2 right, and coming into it, only being 7-7, man, it sure stunk. But that does not mean any of the battles we had were bad. I mean, looking back at it, a lot of these fights, I was just like, oh, someone's winning this easily. When realistically, it was more of a toss up. I was just sort of like, I was either blind to the past when it came to some of the fights, or like only focusing on past like fights and experiences when looking at other fights. But let us get into it. Obviously, sort of same system as we did last week. Great win, good win, win, good loss, loss, and bad loss. And then we'll go into the power rankings. And then we'll go into the BattleBots power rankings, and as you see, I already have them right there, so it's going to be pretty seamless. And alrighty, let's get into it. We start off with Cobalt and Death Roll. Now, for me, this one was a toss-up. I was really excited to see Death Roll back again because we haven't seen it since 2019. And it did really well in 2019. But after watching that fight, it's almost like its greatest weakness is that it's ostensibly still the 2019 BattleBot. Like, they said it themselves. This is the same robot with, like, minor tweaks. And that was good in, like, 2019 because, the metagame didn't evolve around getting the low ground. It didn't revolve around getting, like having, like, intuitive wedgelets design as they do now. And this was a total whooping. I'm going to be saying this a lot. It was a total whooping of one robot to another. And Death Roll is going to have issues this season because of the fact that they don't have a lot of wedgelet configurations. That's gonna bite them in the butt, nip them in the bud, or however you want to colloquialize that. And then we have Cobalt, who did look very strong. I mean, this felt very textbook to me. There was only one point that was like I was concerned on when like Death Row got like a little bit of one of their wedgelets flipped up, and I'm like, oh no, they're gonna have like the same problem as Blip. That was my initial like scare, is that I would have the same problem as Blip, and the fact that it lost all its piano keys, and then it doesn't have anything to ride up on. But, it delivered some great hits. It delivered some great shots. It pinned Death Roll in the corner with the pulverizer, and that was very smart to kill time, get your weapon spinned up, and stop their weapon from spinning up simultaneously. Overall, good win for Cobalt. Great win for Cobalt. And then I do feel like Death Roll is bordering around the bad loss and loss area. It wasn't able to get a lot of shots in, and it's going to have a tough time. I hope it comes back next year and actually goes, hey, we have wedgelets now. Look at us. And then they actually win fights, because you can have the biggest weapon. You can have the most powerful weapon ever. Like the best vertical spinner ever. If you can't win the ground game, you can't win the fight. And I was hoping that Death Roll could prove that wrong. but it proved that statement right. Like the only robot that could probably beat like vertical spinner, like that's never mind, never mind. I was gonna say the Witch Doctor could beat the ground game, but the fact that it doesn't have a wedge as well is very like it's not gonna go well this year for Death Roll, which is disappointing because it's out of the returning robots the one that I am really looking forward to seeing again the most. It was the one I was really looking forward to seeing, and it didn't do well. And now we move on to our second fight. Another returning builder, but a different bot, is Ominous, a former builder of Reality, which I liked Reality it was 2018. It wasn't like outstanding or anything, but I enjoyed it. I was just like, cool, we have a Dutch bot. That's cool. And I think that's where I am with Ominous. I think if it gotten the ability to spin up, it could have done incredible damage to Claw Viper. But at the end of the day, it didn't get the time to spin up. And I also think, I mean, their self-rider is cool. Too slow of a self-rider. Like, I know you like there's some point that could be made about you don't want it to be sporadic, you don't want your lifter to be like so fast that it like breaks like and be unreliable, but you sort of get caught up in all of that when your opponent can go to 0 to 40 in 1 second. At least that math sounds right in my head. You're going to be seeing a lot of great wins coming. A lot of the wins from these robots coming up here into the great win section. And I mean, Claw Viper, probably the most impressive win here. Now, obviously, it's not against, it's not against a blip, or it's not against a hypershock, right? Obviously, it isn't, but it can prove that it can do well. It can prove that. And can do really, really well. And I think that's the big appeal of a fast robot like Claw Viper. It's almost like Complete Control 2.0 if Complete Control was faster and had a blue and red color scheme and named it Claw Viper. But super super fast, lots of traction. It was hard to pay attention to where it was going. It was that fast. And box rushes are going to be really nasty from this guy, and Claw Viper is probably going to move a lot up in my rankings because it looked good. There wasn't any part that you can say Claw Viper looked bad in their fight. Nothing bad happened for it. It looked flawless. The most flawless probably out of all of these robots, probably excluding Hydra, but we'll get to them later. Next up, the tied for... No, this was the most disappointing fight of the season of the night, because you have two heavy hitters in Copperhead and Bloodsport. I was expecting a lot of big hits instead of one pretty solid hit and then the fight is over. But you gotta have your Riptide glitch spot somewhere in an episode where one hit and it's freaking done. It's over like that. I don't know. This leaves me with a lot of questions about, not necessarily about Copperhead. Copperhead definitely had a good win. It set Bloodsport on fire, but this is raising a lot of questions for me when it comes to Bloodsport. of how does it handle the transition to like a gas powered motor, and it didn't in its first fight. It didn't handle it gracefully. It really didn't. One hit, gone, absolutely gone, and it's one of those. It's also one of those I wonder if fights, because in the post game interview, the Copperhead's team captain was just like, "Oh yeah, I'm glad it only lasted one hit because like we were having some driving issues with it." Like, imagine if Bloodsport survived that hit. That's one of the things. Ooh, sorry. It's sort of one of the things that like a rematch will be more indicative about how the fight goes, because I definitely think that Bloodsport is moving in the right direction, but it wasn't a great fight to instill confidence in that right direction. It's a bad loss for Bloodsport, and the third great win in a row for all the winners so far. I mean, a lot of these wins were impressive to me, at least. Next up we have Malice and Lockjaw. One that I picked Malice for, almost sort of in the same vein as like the Tombstone fight from 2019, where Tombstone clipped 2 wheels and it was done. I thought that if Malice is driving, if Malice's driving was good enough, they could definitely clip a wheel, and then Lockjaw isn't looking good after that. I almost think that maybe they should have went for the heavier spinner. I mean, I don't know why. I just think that it would dish out more punches. Yes, it would take a lot more damage from, Lockjaw's wedge itself, but this was a great win from Lockjaw. We barely get to see Lockjaw have like that much power that wow, I'm really yawning. We never really see a bunch of like the power that like Lockjaw has in that spinner, and we saw the power today in this fight. It took so many. It gave so many hits. What am I saying? It didn't take a lot of hits, but that wedge did hold up at the end. I'm gonna give it a good win, not because it's just a judge's decision. I mean, I think this is a good loss for Malice. Reliability for both of these robots are still a major question when you look at both of these robots, because when you look at Malice, yeah, their weapon stopped like halfway through the match, but it stopped after like it started slowing down after a really big hit. So how much do you actually take from that other compared to like a Lockjaw that its weapon randomly started smoking and then started slowing down after it? Not even after a big hit, mind you. It was just slowing down afterwards. It's definitely interesting to see where it goes. I think Lockjaw's trajectory is a lot better than what it was in 2021 in the World Championship 6. Because it actually got a win instead of going 0-3 like it did last year. And we do need to see what happens with Malice over here. It's not a great start, and if I remember correctly, Malice doesn't have. It has Emulsifier. Like, it doesn't have the easiest of schedule, but it doesn't have the hardest either. Like, I would consider all 3 of these matchups that it has in Emulsifier, Valkyrie, and Gruff to be very toss-up matches in none of their favors. Like, I don't look at their schedule and say, oh yeah, they're going to win those fights. But we move on to our next fight, which is Lucky and Triton. Lucky is sort of like always sort of like the underdog of every single season, and it faced off against. It had a very good matchup against Triton, aka Horizontal Deep 6. Historically, Lucky hasn't had the best time with heavy weapon, like heavy horizontal weapon, like spinners. Because you in the past, you look at like fights like Son of Waiachi, right? You look at those fights and say, it really didn't take those hits well. Like parts of it just got thrown absolutely everywhere. It got destroyed everywhere. And, Lucky held its own. Big fucking wedge. I didn't think that it would be able to get as many flips in as it did. It got in a couple of good flips. And, it looks solid. It was able to get it tilted up. Triton tilted up. The only thing I'm worried about is like in a war of attrition, like we saw Lucky slow down at the end of the Triton fight. In a war of attrition, I'm not sure Lucky can win those. I'll need to see, who do they play next? Down here, they play Kraken, Cobalt. Cobalt's gonna be, I think Kraken will be a war of attrition. We'll see what happens when they fight Kraken next. We have not seen Kraken go yet, so it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. Triton, it was a loss. It's a rookie robot. I feel like it needs an obscenely fast amount of time to get spinning up. That might not be true, but you would think it got a decent amount of time to spin up, and Lucky deflected its hits like it was nothing, like a little like one of those fake punches you get from your friend that's just like, I'm gonna punch you, and then it's the lightest of taps. But in this scenario, it was Triton was coming in with the full punch, and right at the end, it almost looked like it stopped, right before he had punched Lucky, and it didn't do that much damage other than probably some internal stuff to Lucky, but it didn't look impressive, but it didn't look bad either. There's a reason. This is almost a Tombstone replacement, and Tombstone has been a robot for such a long time that you have to refine it. And as for Tombstone 1.0, Tombstone 2.1.0, it's not bad. I commend it for the attempt, and we will see what happens with Triton. It's a very interesting robot. Next up, we have Scorpios and Jackpot. Ooh. I really did lose all my money in the casino. Didn't I? Because I banked on Jackpot to win, and Jackpot looked terrible. Jackpot looked really bad. Which, sad, because Jackpot is a very cool robot. One of my favorite robots. Jackpot did not look good. Straight up, it didn't. It did not look good. And Scorpios did look good. I don't know how much I want to add or want to say. I do have a couple of things about, Scorpios had a very their adjustment was very, very good. This is one of the fights where I picked Jackpot because historically Scorpios gets destroyed by the vertical spinners. Like, you look at, like, the uppercut fight and, like, lockjaw and all of these fights with, like, good vertical spinners, and it just keeps them getting popped in the air and popped in the air and popped in the air and popped in the air. Like, so many somersaults happening. And they made an adjustment over the offseason, and it worked really well. Like, the reach that Jackpot has, like Zach Lytle said, like, the reach that Jackpot has is big, and they neutralized it. Like, straight up, that's what Scorpius did. They neutralized it. They got Jackpot after a hit. They got Jackpot on its side, like on its underbelly, and the lifting forks are a very interesting design and one that I like, but they did not work. There's a part of me that wonders. There's a part of me that wonders in these lifting forks that you can make, like, the ends of it hinged as well. I'm sure you can, but like, when it comes to the lifting forks, like, you're gonna have to be, like, constantly, like, in my head, this makes sense. Aren't you gonna have to be, like, pushing it, like, on the ground constantly in order to actually scrape the ground? I don't know. That's just sort of what I'm thinking. But you could definitely see that the forks were getting in the way of Jackpot actually getting a bite on Scorpios. And, this was the fourth loss. I was 2-4 going into the main event, and I was gutsy. And in my predictions, I put Rotator to win. Just to be contrarian. Like, obviously, it was like, Hydra's gonna do really good, but I think Rotator could also just take up a lot of hits. And then the entire storyline of the episode was that Rotator was, like, having issues with its radio controllers, and I go, fuck, dude. Fuck. Because at that point, I already knew that I was losing. At that point, like, it was, you couldn't have telegraphed it more that Rotator was going to lose that fight. Which is unfortunate, because I think Rotator could beat Hydra in a scenario. I definitely don't agree with the fact that they went on top instead of under. I think the undercutter would have done, a better job. Like, lead with the forks and then turn around and hit from, like, the bottom. Maybe try to, like, hit low enough to get, like, one of the wheels and, like, get, like, one of the wheel wells and get a chain off of it. Instead, when you, like, the fact that you flipped it up and then you lead with the top spinner, that just gives Hydra the lower ground so easily, like, before you'll even make contact, because of how, like, the angle worked. Like, Hydra was just gonna get under you, and Hydra got under them, dealt out flip after flip after flip after flip. It doesn't get boring. It never gets boring when a flipper just sends something off like a freaking rocket. Like, it's very fun to see, but for how much, like, Rotator is like a masterclass when it comes to strategy, I don't get why you make such a faulty decision like that. Yeah, I mean, I can understand also why you do it as well, because if you have it on the underside, you could like, right into the wedge and then get flipped, like, the front and get flipped that way. But at least you're doing damage that way. At least you're, like, getting hits and you're taking off wedgelets. Like, I'm no expert, and I feel, and I mean, obviously I don't know the entire thing, but I would have went with the flipper the flipper, the spinner on the bottom instead of on the top. Now, Rotator, it wasn't a full blowout because Rotator was able to get under Hydra, but Hydra recovered from that, and Rotator didn't do any damage with that. Certainly it didn't. But, man, this was like blowout after blowout after blowout. It felt like it was crazy. So, great wins go to Cobalt, Claw Viper, Copperhead, Lucky, Hydra, Lockjaw, and Hydra. Good wins are Lockjaw and Scorpios. And good losses, Malice. Losses go to our two rookies, being Ominous and Triton. And then our bad losses go to Death Roll, Bloodsport, Jackpot, and Rotator. All robots that I think highly of that just did not perform well this year. This fight, at least. Let us get into our power rankings. I'm going to start from the bottom and then wow. I'm going to start from the bottom and then work our way up. Alrighty. Claw Viper looked good. It's definitely in this... For now, it's definitely in sort of this sort of area of like 30s to 27. I think... What do I think? Great question, Caleb. What do you think? I think it's gonna go at 34 now. Up 11 spots, you can't really rip on that. But it had a good win against Ominous. I mean, most impressive robot. Huge was my most impressive robot. Where is my boy Huge? Huge was most impressive 2 weeks ago. I think I had Mad Catter as one of the most impressive wins, or Fusion last week. I can't quite remember. And Ominous, he's gonna go down a bit. Overhaul, he was definitely better than Ripperoni. I will say. I think we'll move Overhaul up one and then put Ominous where Overhaul was. Alrighty, and next we had Lucky was 35 and Triton was 45. We have Lucky. Now, Lucky's also going to be in the same range. I am going to give it the slight nod. Oh my gosh. I'm going to give it the slight nod over Claw Viper, though. We're going to put it at 29. 6 spots is nothing to scoff at. And you look at this, like, Lucky could easily go 3-1 if they wanted to. Like, win the next 2. You probably lose to Cobalt, which is unfortunate. But next we have Triton. Triton, I'm going to put under Shred It, Bro, and Horizon. It bumps down to number 47. There's not much moving that's going to happen in these, like, bottom segments. These are, like, bottom feeders. Next up is Malice and Lockjaw. I think I can say... Oof, this is going to be interesting. Gruff's win was good. It's definitely under Gruff. Malice is definitely under Gruff for now. But do I think Valkyrie's win is more impressive than Malice's loss? No, I don't think it is. I think Malice is going to fall 7 spots into the 32nd seed overall. And, I really do feel like this is like your fringe on the bubble sort of type of robots here. All of these robots could have the potential to rise wide above their station and do way better than people anticipate. But for now, they're gonna chill in that sort of area. That's where my mouse is. All right, cool. Lockjaw. Lockjaw looked good. Lockjaw looked good, other than the chronic smoking habits that it had. I think I'm going to move it up, give it a little bump up to number 20. That feels pretty good. Up, I believe, 6 spots, which is what it deserves. It's sort of in the areas of good robot that had a good win and a great robot that had a bad loss. You know, like, you look at the Whiplash, sort of like that. Good robot and huge, got a good win over Shatter. And I think this is also where Scorpios is going to land as well. It looked really good against Lockjaw. Is actually only going to go up to 21. I shouldn't have said anything, but I think Scorpios is going to go up to 19 for now. It'll probably get bumped. It'll get moved around because of, seeding and stuff. Jackpot's gonna fall a bit. Jackpot from 17 to... Do I put it over Shatter or below Shatter? I think for now I put it below Shatter because, its win, its loss, I felt like is a lot more embarrassing than Huge's loss. And, both of these are in the same area. So I will put Jackpot at 26 for now. Oh, this is going to get moved down probably. Actually, it may not. Oh, we have Death Roll. Oh, honey. No, Death Roll did not look good. Death Roll is not instilling confidence in me whatsoever. But it probably beats, like... Does it beat Claw Viper? God, I'm really questioning this. I don't know. I think I may be sipping the Kool-Aid of Claw Viper, and you can pray and hope that Death Roll has a great comeback, but Death Roll just dropped a lot for me. Lost a lot of... It lost a lot of respect for me as a person. No. It lost a lot of sort of the magic that I thought it had earlier. But we move on to Cobalt. Cobalt, most certainly, for now, is going to knock off Tantrum. It's going to knock off Tantrum. And I think it's gonna be in this 5 spot. It's definitely gonna get moved down once Hydra gets seeded, but for now it's in the 5 spot. Very solid win from Cobalt. And you look at this fight, like these fights that it has coming up, like it could go 4-0 and have a really high seed, and then cruise into the championship like nothing happened. It definitely has the potential to do that. Copperhead is a robot that I think I placed a little too low. And I might be compensating by putting it too high. But I think the top 14 is where it's going to... No, I think it's suitable for it. It's probably going to move up because of, Hydra and Rotator and Bloodsport are going to be lower than it. Where do I put Bloodsport? This is one where I also think I may have had it a little too high, like too lofty of an expectation. I think I will put it at 21, dropping 13 spots, but I think this is a result of me having it way higher than expected. Cobalt, Hydra. I think Hydra is at my number 3. Nope, not number 2. I think Hydra's at number 3. Jumping from 3 spots, from 6 to 3, makes a lot of sense in my head. But realistically, this top 6 could all beat each other. They could all win against each other in a lot of different facets. In a lot of different facets. Like, there's no... Well, obviously, like, when games come around and stuff like that, when more fights come around, we'll have a more fine-tuned idea. Especially the Cobalt Minotaur fight. We're gonna see what comes out of that. And we'll see how that get ranks accordingly. And, you know, Rotator didn't look the best. It didn't look the best, and I think it's going to go from 15... Does it go from 15 down to 20 or 15 down to 18? I think we'll put it at 18 for now. Alrighty, and, you know, full power rankings for now. For now, we have 6 undefeated teams holding the top 6 spots, with Endgame at 1, Witch Doctor at 2, Hydra at 3, Minotaur at 4, Sawblaze at 5, and Cobalt at 6. You have the former champion down to 7 with a rough loss from Minotaur, but, you know, a lot of things can happen because Hydra and Tantrum face off next. That's going to be like the next big sort of top like heavyweight fight. At Mad Catter at 8, which Mad Catter and Riptide, you know, Riptide being the 10th seed, you know, with number 10 in the power rankings, that's going to be a good fight when it comes to power ranking standards. Sandwiched in between them is Blip at number 9. Both of, you know, the Tantrum, like Aaron Hill's family is not looking the hottest right now. Hypershock at 11 and Ribot at 12, having good losses, I would say, but they're still pretty high up here on their potential. You know, Copperhead looked really good, 1 knockout punch against Bloodsport. He sits at 13. At 14, you have Captain Shredderator, who will most certainly... Captain Shredderator, Quantum, who in Gruff we'll see how great that, like, bite down is. It will probably do really well. You have a robot that hasn't fought yet in Black Dragon, is at the 15 seed. It's going to be facing off against number 23 Monsoon, which is going to be a very good fight, all things considered. You have a Whiplash, who had a hard loss against Mad Catter, sitting at 16. Doesn't have a great matchup against Hypershock. Both 0-1 teams looking for a win. You have Scorpios, who just beat Jackpot and will have maybe an easy ride against Big Deal. We will see. Big Deal is pretty low down there on the score. Number 18, you have Hydra, who will face off against Jackpot, another 2 robots. That's a rematch, and also 2 robots that are looking for their first win of the season. You have Huge at number 19, who have another interesting bot they face in Blip, who is currently number 9. So if they beat them, you know, the Huge's stocks are going to continue to rise. You have Lockjaw, who has a really tough matchup at 20. That's going to face number 5 Sawblaze next, which, you know, going to be a tough matchup. Fight of the green robots, even though Sawblaze is pretty black color scheme of a robot. You have Bloodsport, who fell a lot, partially because I think I had it too high. Will face a full body spinner in Gigabyte, who also didn't reach expectations. They're all the way down at 39. 22 is Glitch, who will have Lockjaw as their next opponent. We're going to have to wait a good amount for that, because that is Lockjaw's third opponent. but we will see if it gets a bounce back matchup. Monsoon's at 23. We already talked about their fight with Black Dragon. Fusion with a strong win against Emulsifier. It's going to be really interesting to see how they handle Witch Doctor. Shatter at 25 has Beta next, and we'll see the Hammer versus Hammer fight. Number 26 is Jackpot, looking for a bounce back fight against a robot that is also looking for a bounce back fight in Rotator. Beta at number 27 facing off against number 36 Kraken. This should be an interesting matchup, and we'll see what happens with the fight, because Kraken got a new spinner. We got Lucky going at 28, which I mean is a little low, but it's packed in with all of these sort of robots that can be really good, but can also be underwhelming potentially. That's discredit. That's like discrediting Lucky. I didn't mean to say it like that. But good win against Triton. It has Kraken next. Claw Viper, maybe a robot that just has their stock rise and rise and rise as the season goes on. Looked very impressive against Ominous there at 29. At 30, we have Death Roll, not looking great against Cobalt, looking for a win against Switchback, who is number 38. Number 31 is Free Shipping, who had a great win against Free Shipping, but will have a tough matchup against number 4, Seed Minotaur, next. And then we have Gruff rounding out the round of 32 with facing Quantum next. A win after Ripperoni. We have Malice, Valkyrie, I would say that are on the bubble. Malice, Valkyrie, Hijinks. All three are good horizontal spinners, but you have to think the fact that horizontal spinners aren't very represented in the top of the list, that, it's getting phased out of the meta. You have Kraken with a new design that has yet to be seen, could rise a lot in the power rankings later. We have Emulsifier, who looked very good against Fusion. We have Switchback, who got a win over Banshee. That is certainly a thing that happened. We have Gigabyte at 39, Mammoth at 40, Overhaul at 41, Ominous at 42, Ripperoni at 34, 43, Captain Shredderator at 44, Shred It Bro at 45, Horizon at 46, Triton, Big Dill, Banshee, and Starchild rounding out the bottom of the list. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe and comment about how wrong I am with my thoughts and my power rankings on BattleBots, and I will catch you next week for week 4.